Every culture on Earth has a story about something that returns after death. A shadow, a revenant, a curse. Something that should be gone, but isn't. But only one country gave the world the word that would define that fear forever. The word is Serbian. The year is 1725. And what happened in a forgotten village on the banks of the Danube did not remain legend. It was written down, signed, sent to the Imperial Court in Vienna. Kisiljevo, a small village in southern Habsburg, Serbia. Perhaps 200 inhabitants. Fields, livestock, mud, silence. A place history would never have remembered had something not returned from the grave. The people lived simply. They worked the land. They prayed. They buried their dead according to Orthodox custom. And they believed that the dead should stay dead. On the hill above the village, there was a new grave. The earth still dark, still unsettled. The man inside had been dead for 10 days. His name was Petar Blagojević. The Austrian officials would later call him Petar Blagojević. He was an ordinary peasant. And then, the village began to die. Prayers were spoken over him. The coffin lid was nailed shut. The earth was closed above him. That should have been the end of Petar Blagojević. 9 days later, the first neighbor fell ill, then a second, then a third. Each described the same thing: a weight on the chest, an inability to move, the face of a man already buried.
He came to my son in the night. He woke up screaming that something was sitting on him, that he couldn't breathe. He described the face. It was the face of Petar Blagojević. My son died 3 days later.
I am not a man who believes in such things. But I saw him. He stood beside my bed and stared at me. I could not move. When my wife woke me, there was blood on my neck.
5 nights he came the same way. The cold, the weight, his face. On the 5th night I screamed. When my mother came in with a candle, he was gone. But the marks were there.
9 dead in 8 days. Kisilova was no longer a village in mourning. It had become a village in fear. The villagers did not reach for torches. They reached for a quill. We, the inhabitants of Kisiljevo, petitioned the imperial authorities to investigate the case of the deceased Petar Blagojević, who is reported to have returned among the living and caused the deaths of our people. The letter was sent to Belgrade, 2 days' ride through the cold autumn. The petition reached Imperial officer Johann Joseph Frombald, a man trained to believe only in facts. He read the report and did not dismiss it.
Have the horses ready at dawn. Whatever we find, it will be documented.
On the 14th of September, 1725, in the presence of the priest, the villagers, and the imperial officer, the grave of Petar Blagojević was opened. The coffin was lifted from the earth. It had been buried for 10 days. What Frombald saw when the lid was opened, he recorded in his official report. The body shows no decomposition consistent with what would be expected. The skin appears fresh. There is blood in the mouth. The eyes are open. I I confess, I was disturbed. The villagers claimed the body was pierced with a stake and that fresh blood flowed from its mouth. No one in the village slept that night. Frombald's report reached Vienna, and from Vienna into the newspapers. For the first time, a Serbian word appeared before all of Europe. Vampyr. Paris, London, Rome. Europe became obsessed with a story from Serbia. Voltaire wrote about it. The church investigated. Even the emperor demanded an official inquiry. Years later, people would try to explain what was seen in Kisiljevo. Perhaps there is a rational explanation. Perhaps there is for everything. But one question never went away. How did one small village in Serbia manage to terrify all of Europe? How did an ordinary peasant become immortal? I wrote down only what I saw. But there are things I still cannot explain to myself. The story traveled faster than the truth. From Serbia to Vienna, from Vienna to the world. And with it traveled one word. A word from Serbian villages. A word Europe would never forget. Long before Dracula, before the novel, before the films, there was a grave beside the Danube, and people who swore that something rose from it. The Frombald report is not legend. It is not folklore. It is a document, and it still exists. In the Vienna State Archive, filed under 18th century Habsburg administrative correspondence from the Belgrade district. It has been there since 1725. Somewhere in those shelves, between tax records and military dispatches and land surveys, sits a folder. Inside, a report written by hand by a man named Frombald in September of 1725. A report about a dead man in a Serbian village who would not stay dead. Historians have read it. Researchers have photographed it. The handwriting is clear. The seal is intact. 300 years later, we are still reading it. His name was Johann Joseph Frombald. He signed it. He dated it. He sent it to Vienna. And then he went home to a life in which he had once written, "I confess, I was disturbed." That line is still there, in his handwriting, in the archive, right now. Perhaps Petar Blagojevic never rose from the dead. Perhaps fear did what fear has always done, turned the darkness into something that breathes. But if it was all just a story, why did a man trained to believe only in facts end his report with the words that he was disturbed? And why do people 3 centuries later still ask the same question? What if legends do not survive because they are invented, but because someone, somewhere, once upon a time, truly saw something? And perhaps fear never left Kisiljevo.